He was totally anti-Christian. He leaned towards black magic initially, and then grew it into a more white light concept. But really for Gardner, it always stayed black magic. And he had ties with Crowley, and Crowley had severely influenced him. But he lacked the tenacity to create and write magic formulation. And I think that was one of his shortfalls. But one thing he was good at, Witchcraft Today was his magazine. And he had good with those taglines and the way he approached the media. He did good by it. But he very much so was a black magic magician. And he himself would deny that too. I call a spade a spade. And that's all I am generally with everyone, you know. I mean, I see white light people that say, I'm only white light, and I'm like, yeah, well, I differ with you. I call it spade a spade. I mean, it really is true. I see them working black magic in denial. And that's fine. Whatever works for them. If they think they can make a difference in their real world by their type of projection, that's all that really matters. It's when you're trying to put some kind of stringent guideline on people in magic in general, which is avidly done by analytics and these armchair type of philosophers or academia. They're always trying to stringently guideline everything like, this is this, and you're not allowed to deviate, and we have to stay in the box. Well, I mean, that's just not going to work. It becomes a waste of time. It's frivolous.
And another thing that's interesting about your book, The Satanic Paradigm, is that you used Lovecraft incorporated into satanic rituals and traditions. Why is Lovecraft considered a fiction writer important in Satanism?
Lovecraft was a satanic clairvoyant. There is not much known about Lovecraft because he was highly secretive. Why he is significant is because he believed in what he was writing and creating. When he was 5 years old, he had a series of visions from this creature or entity known as Alhazred, which is commonly known as the Muslim, not Muslim, but Arab priest that discovered the Necronomicon and had kept it encloaked and had written about it in his treatises and writings. But really, Alhazred to Howard Phillips Lovecraft was an entity, a spirit that spoke to him as a child. And his mother, Susan Lovecraft, trumped this up to being, at that time, HBL's fascination with the Arabian Nights novels and anything Arabian, because Arabia in general is very alluring and sensual. And Lovecraft as a child was attracted, and being in that attraction, he came in contact with entities. This also has to do with his father. His father was, during the 1800s, clearly insane. His father believed that he was plagued by entities himself that he would call the old horror, forces that were coming at him. He felt never alone in a room. He was committed, unfortunately, to an asylum, and this was real. And Susan wanted everything she could for her son, Phillips Lovecraft, to get him away from that. And that had a very searing response in Lovecraft's mind as well, to know that his father was committed, and they were in utter poverty. She was struggling. They had to move in with family members. There was a series of other events that happened to Lovecraft that, in his life, in a sense of shocks, installed within him an occult power, an occult willingness, an occult desire, an occult drive. And people want to say, oh, Lovecraft was just a sickly boy who, during the 1920s was interested in Latin or something. They're so far from the truth. That is so far from the truth. Lovecraft began to reach out to people through letters. He spoke and met and tried to get involved with the Weird Tales scene, which he did and accomplished to do so. He was an avid occultist. There is even rumors that he met and was involved with Aleister Crowley during his internment in New York City. Not internment, but more like his time when he lived there. But according to Lovecraft, it would be an internment because he lived off of Red Hook with his then wife, Sonia Green. During that time of experience of Crowley, Lovecraft, Sonia Green, also that comes into play about Lovecraft's occultism and his draw into supernatural power was Houdini's writing of his work under the pyramid, which Lovecraft did for him as a ghostwriter. And during that connection, even moving a little bit ahead of Crowley in showing that Lovecraft was indeed an occultist, not just a supernatural fiction writer, Houdini definitely consulted with Lovecraft, and they had met often in Brooklyn and in Manhattan in discussing the seance work, the creatures from beyond the grave, the gargantuousness of the other realm, and so on and so on, because Houdini was completely immersed in the occult. Aside from his magical experiences, which he had done to the general public and wanted to do, general shifts of hand and illusions and so on and so on, he was very much into it, and he had also made Lovecraft very much into it, and Sonia Green, who being Lovecraft's wife, was very much into it. So it was almost like you can see during that period, especially in New York City, a coven, in a sense, of real powerful figures coming together and sort of having some kind of connectivity there. And then moving on, of course, into Howard Phillips' breakdown and then death and so on. There's a lot to that involved in whether Lovecraft actually was murdered, and I know that's reaching slightly because there's not much known about that, but he died at a very young age, and there were people around him that wanted what he had, that wanted what he was doing, wanted his writings. They knew and saw a star, which he was, but he was broke. But for him to die suddenly, dirtless, to just come out and say, I've got everything, I own Lovecraft. Sonia Green has disappeared. So there's a lot of intrigue, occult power, and sad events that played on into Lovecraft's life that make him a preeminent occult figure, which is very unknown, and it's still not over.